Welcome to part 4 of my DIY luxury picnic table. We start with day 3, sanding, staining, and partial assembly. I was using a power tool sander that I didn't know how to properly use. Yikes! So yeah, I'm pretty sure I went against the grain many times. After I was done, I used a tack cloth to wipe it off. Okay, I did this so wrong, but here's the espresso water-based wood stain that I used. And of course, I forgot to get a stirring stick for it. So I opted for a foam brush because it's wide. After I applied the stain, I was distracted by the color. I did want it to be dark, so I wanted to leave it on a bit longer. And then I covered the entire table with the first coat, and then I started the second coat. Like I said, I am new to this, but I mean, it looked like I was doing it right. Just the color was so beautiful. Anyways, before I knew it, it was like dry. California weather. What can I say? Here I'm working on the side aprons and giving the legs a second coat. Doesn't that color look nice? I think this is the famous blotching or just my really poor sanding. So I'm giving it a second coat. This one did look wet and I was able to use a paper towel to supposedly wipe off some of the excess stain. I continued sanding the underside of the table, wiping it down, and then staining it. I'm not sure how far apart working day number 4 was from number 3, but the stain was still sticky and it wouldn't dry. And yes, I ruined my sponges thinking I can just sand it down while it was still sticky. My bad. I am loosely reattaching the legs and this is how the table looks. Like I said, it was loosely attached, so now it's time to tighten those carriage bolts. Basically, all I need to do now is just attach the side aprons to the side of the legs. So that way when we open the legs, they're together, connected as one, and it also acts as a stopper to kind of keep the legs a little more sturdier. See, the stain wasn't drying and it was making me a little nervous at that point. After a few days of waiting and some research later, I finally decided to use a wet cloth to wipe off some of the stain. Wet with water because it's water-based stain. As a beginner, I am so glad that I did go with water-based. Obviously, something was wrong here at the bottom, so I tried a second option, which was to add another coat of stain to loosen the bottom ones and then wipe it off. But of course, it dried quickly again, so I just applied another coat and wiped it off immediately, and then I was okay with the results. The legs were the stickiest and darkest, so I also scrubbed them down with a wet rag. When the table was dry to the touch, I tried to sand it again before the polyurethane. Yeah, I just gave up on trying to sand it. I left the table out to dry for like about 2 days before I got back to it. It's finally time for the polyurethane. As a beginner, I went with the water-based one again, and I opted for the brush. I first tested it out on the side aprons, and it didn't seem difficult. Back to the tabletop, I wiped it down, and as you can see, the stain was still coming off, but whatever, I'm just going to have to seal it in like that. Working on the tabletop was harder than I thought. The weather only made it worse. It was too thick, and as I went back and forth to make straight strokes, the polyurethane kept clumping up. So I actually wiped off the first two rows and started over, and I just applied so much. This is what it looked like after the first coat. You can see the spot that had a thin layer, and on either side of it, you can see where the clumps had started to form. The following morning, I added a second coat of polyurethane and left it at that. So, what do you think of it? I actually like how it turned out. I think all the imperfections actually give it its character, so I am really happy with it. Anyways, make sure to come back for the final video where we make a big decision, we attach the side aprons, and show how the legs work. Thanks for watching.